So in this lesson, we're going to be finding zeros of rational functions and then also solving rational inequalities. So today's date is October 1st. Recall that a rational function is a function that is a ratio of two polynomial functions, so fractions. We explored polynomial inequalities back in section 1.5. So you guys remember those problems where we would make a sign chart? We're going to do that here again, okay? Where we can utilize some of those concepts to help us understand more about rational functions like f of x. So let f of x equal two functions divided by each other, so g of x over h of x, where g of x and h of x have no common factors, no factors in common. Then we know that we talked about this a little bit in Math 3, that f of x is going to have zeros when the top g of x is equal to 0. And then, are we allowed to divide by 0? No. So f of x is undefined when h of x equals 0. Okay. And then something that it's going to come up here in a couple sections, but I want you guys to remember this now. Whenever a factor cancels on top and bottom, do you guys remember what happens in the graph? There's a hole. Very good. That means there's a hole in the graph. Can you guys highlight that for me? When a factor cancels, that means that there's a hole in the graph. Okay. So in this lesson, we're going to be focusing on solving rational inequalities. So note, when solving rational inequalities, you need to identify both the zeros and undefined values, because we're going to use those, because we're going to end up making a sign chart. We need to know what makes it undefined, and we need to know what makes it 0. So just like when you guys solve anything, pretty much after Math 1, you want to make sure that there's a 0 on one side. So move everything to one side, so that way you have a 0 on the other side. Make sure that you write your function into one single fraction. So f of x is equal to g of x divided by h of x. You want to find where g of x equals 0 and when h of x equals 0. So if you have to, you need to factor. Create a sign chart with all the values you found in step 3. And then leave a little note for yourself, because this is going to come up. Don't include holes. So what you should do is do you guys remember this in Math 3? You guys would factor it first and then cancel things and then find all the steps. That's what you want to do first. If something cancels, then it's not going to go into your sign chart, because your sign chart, you only care about undefined and then what still makes it 0. Be careful when you're marking where h of x is 0. So that's the bottom. We never include those in our solution. And this will make more sense when we do a problem. Once you guys have done the sign chart, to answer your question, write your answer in interval notation. All right. So first example, we're going to solve x minus 2 over x plus 3, x plus 6 times x minus 3. And we want to know when that's greater than or equal to 0. So the first thing we want to do, guys, is we want to know when is the top equal to 0 and when the bottom equals 0. So notice that for this one, start out pretty easy. It's already factored for us, right? So that's cool. That's nice. So what I want to do is, where is the top equal to 0? What makes the top 0, guys? 2. So the top, x is equal to 2, is a 0. The bottom, what makes the bottom 0? -6 and 3. Okay. So we want to know when this function either equals 0 or is greater than 0. Do you guys agree with me that these make the bottom equal 0? But can the bottom actually ever be 0? Can we divide by 0? So do you guys understand when I'm saying this? What I'm saying is, these do make the bottom 0, but they don't make the function actually equal 0, because you can't actually make the bottom 0. So when we're doing our sign chart, we're going to kind of ignore these in terms of like in our answer. So whenever these come up in our answer, we're going to use parentheses, because we can't use a bracket because those actually can't be answers. But this can be an answer, right? Can the top be 0, guys? Yes. So we can use a bracket for this guy, but we cannot use brackets for these guys, okay? So just like we've been doing, we're gonna make a sign chart, and it's gonna look a little funky because we have a division. So if you guys remember when we did this, we would put everything in order. So what number is the smallest of these 3 solutions? -6. Okay, and then I'm going to put 2, I'm going to put 3. Which one of these can actually be a solution? 2. So at 2, I'm going to put like a little wall and put a 0, because it can be 0. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show my work like down here. So do you guys see that we have 1 factor on top and 2 factors on the bottom? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in numbers bigger than 3, something between 2 and 3. That one kind of sucks. Pick something between these 2 numbers, and then pick something that's less than -6. So I'm going to start with something bigger than 3. So remember I told you guys like be dramatic. So I'm going to pick like 100. If I pick 100 minus 2, guys, is that positive or negative? Positive. So I'm going to put a plus, and then like this, because we have a fraction, so divided by. If I plug in 100 into here, guys, is that going to be positive or negative? Positive. If I plug 100 into here, is that going to be positive or negative? Positive. So the question becomes, what's a positive divided by a positive times a positive? Positive. Okay. Now, this will come up in Calc 2 sometimes. That's the worst when that happens because that means you have to pick what? A decimal, because there's no nice number between those two numbers. So let's pick like 2.5. 2.5 minus 2, guys, is that going to be positive or negative? Positive. 2.5 plus 6? Positive. 2.5 minus 3 is negative. So the bottom, guys, is that positive or negative? Negative. So this result's going to be negative. Okay, is everyone okay? What would be a very smart choice to pick right here? 0. So 0 minus 2? Negative. 0 plus 6? Positive. 0 minus 3? Negative. So I notice right here I have a negative on top and a negative on the bottom, so that's going to become positive. So I have a positive, so a negative divided by negative gives me a positive. So this is going to be positive. Something really negative. Negative 8? Okay. Negative 8 minus 2? Negative. Negative 8 plus 6? Negative. Negative 8 minus 3? Negative. What's a negative times a negative? Positive, but what's a negative divided by a positive? Negative. So if I want to answer the question now, I want everything to either be what? Greater than or equal to 0, right? So do I care about this? No. Do I include negative 6? No. But I do include from here to there, and then from here onwards. Does that make sense? So to start my answer, guys, remember this is on the bottom, right? That's an undefined value. So do I use parentheses or brackets? Parentheses. So the solution to this would be parentheses negative 6, comma, all the way to 2. Can I use a bracket for 2? Yes. Okay, and then after 2, it's negative. All the way until what number? 3. So union, parentheses, because 3 makes the bottom 0, so 3 all the way to infinity. How's that? The first one and lesson's always the most painful one because you're like learning it. We're going to be able to move a lot faster now because you guys hopefully get a good grasp of this. How could I test that this is correct? What could I do with this function? Graph it. So let me show you. I'm going to use Desmos because I don't want to pull up my other calculator right now. Can you help me out? What's on top? X minus 6, X minus 2. And on the bottom it was okay. So we said that it was positive from what? Negative 6 to what? 2. So check this out. Negative 6 is right here. What's right there on the graph, guys? Everybody should look up here real quick. What's on the graph right here, guys? Vertical asymptote. So from negative 6, it's positive, 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 positive. When we say it's positive, you guys see how the red curve is above the x-axis? So it's positive all the way until 2. After 2, it goes below the x-axis all the way to 3. And then from 3 onwards, it's above the x-axis. So the graph matches our solution. Okay, let's do another one. What do I need to do first? Factor. What is the top factor to, guys? What does the bottom factor to? Nobody knows? -5, -5. But because it happens twice, do you guys agree I could write it like this? Okay, so we want to see when that's less than 0. So now notice that it's not underlined. So it's never going to be 0. We don't care about when it's ever 0 in this case. We just want to know when it's strictly negative. Okay, so because this is not underlined, that means my answer is going to have just parentheses everywhere, no brackets. Okay, so what makes the top 0? What about the bottom? Just 5, right? So let's make a sign chart. -2, 2, 5. Felix, give me a big number. 100. If I plug in 100, guys, 100 plus 2 is positive. 100 minus 2 is positive. Divided by. Now, here comes the cool part about this one. This is why I wanted you guys to write it like this. What do we know what happens when you square any number? It always becomes positive. So it doesn't matter what you plug into the bottom. It's always going to be positive. So that's going to make our life easier for this problem. Okay? So the result of this is going to be positive. A number between 2 and 3, I'm going to pick, 2 and 5, I'm going to pick 3. Sorry, I was thinking ahead. I'm going to pick 3. 3 plus 2 is positive. 3 minus 2 is positive. Anything squared is positive. So this is positive. Zero. 0 plus 2 is positive. 0 minus 2, negative. And then anything squared is positive. So the numerator is negative. So the result of this fraction is going to be negative. Okay, if I pick something less than -2, so if I pick like -10, -10 plus 2 is negative. -10 minus 2 is negative. And then anything squared is positive. So the top becomes positive. A positive divided by positive is positive. So we only care about when this function is what? Negative. So I only care about, do you guys agree, this part of my sign chart? Yeah? So what's my answer? Parentheses what? Questions? Okay. Let's do At least one more, and then we'll see how much time we have left. What's going on with positive? What should I do first? Factor. So we're going to have 2 times x minus 3 because I have a GCF of 2. The bottom factor is 2 x minus 3 times x minus 3. So what's going to happen? Cancels. So this just becomes 2 over x minus 3. We want to know when it's positive. Okay, so this is important. What does our note say about zeros of the graph? Zeros come from what? The top or the bottom? Top. Do I have anything left on top that's ever going to make this 0? No. So on your homework, if this happens, do not tell me 3. Okay, because this actually represents what again? A whole, okay? So then what makes the bottom undefined? 3, because I can't divide by 0. So if I plug in 3, do you guys agree 3 minus 3 gives me 0, right? So when I solve this problem, even though there's no zeros on top, I still have a value that makes the bottom 0. So that is the only number that goes in my sign chart, okay? So the only value that needs to go on my number line is 3. So do you guys agree 2 itself, 2 is always going to be positive, right? If I plug in something bigger than 3, so I plug in like 4. 4 minus 3 is positive. So this is going to be positive. If I plug in something less than 3, like 0, the top is still 2, so that's going to be positive. On the bottom, 0 minus 3 gives me a negative. So this results in a negative. For my problem, I only care about when this function is positive. So am I going to use any brackets? No. Only when this is underlined, right? And also when it's on top. Nothing's on top here, that makes it 0. So that means my answer to this question is going to be what? What? 3 comma infinity? Okay. I can't tell if you guys are good or if you guys are like, this is easy. Okay, we're gonna do a couple more Friday that are like this one, because this is when it's tough where you have to think about when is it 0, when is it not 0. So let me hand you guys the assignment. I know we haven't done this problem yet. This is like one of the first problems on the 1.8. Just skip it for now because I'll teach you guys how to do this on Friday, okay?